Hello, everybody. Come on in, get comfortable. We're really excited for another episode today. I am psyched that you're here, and no matter where you are in the world, I'd love for you to take a minute, click the like button, the love button, the share button, so that more people can enjoy the show with us today. My name is Jessica Dugas. I'm an intuitive mentor and the host of this show, and this is The Breakthrough. It's the spiritual view for your soul and mind, where we dig deep on today's spiritual hot topics and inspire you with stories that change our lives. So if you are joining us today live or on the replay, I would love for you to take a moment and comment down below where you're joining us from so that we can say hello to you. If we don't get a chance to say hi to you on the live, don't worry, we'll be sure to come back and interact with you after the show as well. So we have an amazing show in store for you guys today. I'm so excited because we have the father of one of our panelists on today, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But his name is Harley Monte, and joining us from Canada, he has been in the spiritual space working as an intuitive since the 80s, and we're really excited for him to share a little bit about his journey today, about his awakening, discovering that he was intuitive, and we're also going to learn about the number system that his spirit guides talk to him about, that he calls power numbers. And so it's going to be a really great show, and Harley's got a fantastic sense of humor, so get ready for some laughs. I think we're going to have a great time. But first, we have to get to welcome our panelists today. So I want to take just a minute and make sure, if you haven't shared this yet, make sure you share it out so that more people can enjoy the show. So get that share button going, and let's welcome our guests today. So first up, we have our mama bear extraordinaire. She helps us with all the trauma in our lives. Please welcome Siri Ridenauer to the show today. Oh, she's still eating the cookies from the green room. Siri, how were they today? Were they good?
And his Swedish ginger cookies. Good.
Awesome. Really glad to have you back on the show today. Siri's actually filling in. One of our other panelists, Lorianne Davis, was feeling a bit under the weather today, so we hope that everybody will send her some hearts and some love and healing vibes so that she gets to feeling better really soon. So thanks for filling in today, Siri.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So up next on our panel today, we have our transformational midwife. She's our calm presence on the show. Everybody, please hit the heart button for Crystal Cockerham today.
Hi.
Hi, Crystal. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Everything's still kind of coming down from Mercury retrograde, or how are we feeling today about that?
Good.
Good. Okay, good. All right. So up next, we have our plant-based wellness coach. She is the plant-based wellness coach from Canada. Join us in welcoming our friend Shoshana Chaim to the show today.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey, Shoshana.
How are you today, Shoshana?
I'm doing great. It is still winter up here, but despite that, pushing along, waiting for spring. Yeah.
And it's Bring Your Dad to Work Day.
Definitely, yes. It is Bring Your Dad to Work Day. Really exciting. Yeah, we're going to see how that goes.
It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So we've got to get into our hot topic today, because this is one that is really close to my heart. So last year, in a book club that I had, we did the book Judgment Detox by Gabby Bernstein, and it was a really crazy good experience, and one that really changed how I look at a lot of things in my life. So this topic today of judgment that we're going to be talking about, there was a thread on tinybuddha.com where someone said, I feel like I'm constantly judging people and I hate myself for that. Judging them on the basis of their looks, social life, intelligence, wittiness, confidence. I feel like I'm really good at finding the little bad things about people and sometimes get stuck on that. I want to change being that way for 2 reasons. Number 1, because I hold myself to a really high standard, higher than other people. And number 2, because I feel like I'm not able to appreciate people. So what I would like to know from you guys today is if you feel like judgment is something that we can completely stop doing, and if so, how do we do that? So I'd love to have you guys chime in, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the book that I had done as well. Siri, what's your thoughts on judgment?
Well, I think being human, that we're never going to be able to be at that level where there's not going to be some kind of thought that comes into our mind. You know, it's normal. How you handle that thought is the next thing. You know, you take that thought as soon as it comes in and counteract it with a positive thought towards that person. You don't even have to say it. Just think positive thoughts towards that person, you know, and quick, you know, forgive me for thinking that, you know, I wish them well, I bless them, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, that kind of what you do with it thought. What about you, Crystal? What's your thoughts on judgment?
My thoughts on judgment is when the judgments show up, they show us things about ourselves for ourselves to work on. Is it possible to live without judgment? I think it absolutely is impossible, but for some of us, it's probably going to be like the end of our life. Like, oh, who cares, right? Because we've all done like so much. But, you know, it's always accessible because we're humans having human experiences, right? So our whole process is to look at all of the different things every time we're triggered. What is that about me? What is that within me that I can look at? Because really they're just showing it to us.
I like that too. I like that too. I think that that's a good thing to look at. You know, anytime that we're feeling something about someone else, it gives us the opportunity to look at ourselves as well. What's your thoughts, Shoshana? You chime in here.
I completely agree with Crystal. That's what I was going to say. You know, if she's being so judgmental to other people and she's holding herself on really high standards, she's nitpicking everything about herself. And I've totally been there. And like, you know, you get that person, you're like, why would that mom make that decision for that child? And then you're like, okay, where am I not comfortable with the decisions that I'm making for my child? How can I change that? Or what decisions have I made? Or, you know, how am I not showing up the way that I want to show up? However, having said that, I think if you have a really good NLP specialist, you could get rid of all that. You could get rid of anything. You just need to do the work. You need to do the work. And if you're just going to be hating on other people all the time, you're not doing the work and you're going to dig yourself into a deeper hole that's going to be a lot harder to get out of.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think a lot of what you ladies are talking about were things that we talked about when we did went through the Judgment Detox book and the workbook that went with it. And one of the biggest things that was that my takeaway from doing that book was that, you know, judgment serves a purpose. It really does, because judgment is ultimately what keeps us safe. It's weighing, you know, is it good judgment for me to cross the street because there's a car coming? I mean, like, just, you know, the weighing that we do all the time. And I think tying into what Siri said, it really is about, you know, not stopping the judgment, but rather how long it takes you to go through that process. It's kind of like, okay, I've had a judgment, now what am I going to do with it? And it's more of a okay, I'm going to choose now to reside in that space of judgment and to start, you know, being nasty about things? Or am I going to acknowledge I had the judgment, you know, and maybe shift that thought, shift your perception, shift, like how Shoshana was saying, picking at yourself, because a lot of times that is what's happening. And in that article on Tiny Buddha, or the thread on Tiny Buddha, response that someone said. I loved what they said. They responded to this person by saying, the inner critic is the voice in our brain that criticizes or judges ourselves. For example, your inner critic judges your nose as being the wrong nose to have. The outer critic is the voice in our brain that criticizes or judges other people. An example would be, look at that person's nose. It is the wrong nose to have. Often when a person's inner critic is very active, so is the person's outer critic. It is the inner critic that takes a break when the outer critic is speaking, a relief from self-criticism. So isn't that interesting? You asked how to become non-judgmental and appreciate people for what they truly are. My answer is by becoming non-judgmental towards yourself and appreciating yourself for who you truly are. Of course, it is easier said than done, but it is still possible through sincere and persistent work over time. So I love that little insight that he said about, by criticizing someone else, by judging someone else, it gives us a break from judging ourselves. So what if we just chose to take a break from judging ourselves? Would we actually get in that space of feeling the need to judge other people and situations and things like that? What are some of the other things you ladies have used to get out of a space of judgment with yourself? I know you mentioned NLP, Shoshana.
Yeah, NLP has really worked for me. There's definitely techniques that I can use on myself, and tapping as well. So there's techniques that I can use on myself. There's techniques that I use better with some of my clients than I do with myself. And then there's certain, there's definitely certain situations where I need the expert to come in, and, I need them to come in. So, whether it has to do with my patients, whether it has to do with the way I'm recognizing my history or the fears that I have about the future, whatever it is that, so here's the thing, if you're criticizing somebody and you're letting it go and it's not impacting the rest of your life, that's one thing. But if whatever it is, if it's keeping you from being your very best self and keeping you from showing up and keeping you from concentrating on the book that you're reading because all you're thinking about is all these other things, then you need intervention, right? Mm-hmm. That's when you need intervention.
Yeah, I love that too, that kind of, it is a very different thing for that to be the focus of where all your energy is going, and for it to, like I was saying as well, recognizing that you have the judgment and then moving on, and not being something that I don't think that makes it right necessarily to judge other people, but it's a different thing than residing in that space. What are some of the tools that you've used, Crystal?
For me, oh my gosh. Well, it depends on the nature of it. And also when I'm working with clients, it's different, right? Sometimes, and it depends on the client too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, okay, what is that about? So when have you thought that? When have you been accused of that? When have, you've been on the receiving end of that? What does that feel like? Where did that come from? Sometimes there's like the backpedaling to kind of get to that main root system of that weed, so to speak, so you can pluck it out of there. Going into a sweat lodge is a really great way of eradicating a lot of patterns. Yes. And if you set the intention that you're going to go in and do something, the sweat lodge is really quite an alchemical process to go through. So there's that. I've also used tapping, and it's funny because I introduced the concept today, Shoshana, to somebody just this morning. She's like, yeah, I know, I do that. I get into a loop. And it was the first time I had spoken to this woman, totally beautiful soul. And I'm like, okay, so when you do that, just do this. You do it in the car. You do. Who cares if somebody sees you? They're not going to know what you're doing. I do it all the time. I don't care. It gives them a laugh. It gives them a laugh while they're driving down the road, right?
I love the tapping too, and that was I actually learned from someone else Trisha Mitchell, I think I learned from, they were talking about different tapping points, because you see a lot with EFT with the very similar points, and some of the points that Trisha uses are actually on the sides of her knuckles, which are really good. And that's something like you can be doing and nobody sees what you're doing. You know, you can be doing that anywhere. So there's lots of different things that you can do with the tapping, but I love that that's something that both of you ladies use as well. Siri, is there any other tools that you use for getting yourself out of a space of judgment, whether it's with yourself or other people?
I have a technique that I use that I close my eyes, put my hand on my heart, and take 3 deep breaths.
I love that.
And that's not just judgment, but that's in any situation where I'm anxious or angry or whatever, you know, get into your heart space, and then everything else just fades away.
I love that too. Kind of bring, you know, if it's our purpose, or if we feel like it's part of our being to be in a space of love, then we kind of have to, you know, check in with that and remember that that's kind of our why, and connect with that when we're in a space of judgment. So I love that as well. Great topic today, and we would love for everybody that is joining us. I know that there's been a ton of people checking in. And speaking of Jamad, we were just talking about you before the show. I bet your ears were burning. Jamad chimed in and said he loves that technique as well. So I want to say hi to Jamad. I want to say hi to Nita. I saw Grim. I saw, who else was on today? I saw Deb chiming in. I saw Lynn, Kathy as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and keep letting us know below what are some of the techniques that you use to get yourself out of a space of judgment, whether it's with yourself and other people. But as for now, I want to get to our guest, because our guest has a lot to say today. We know this. And so I want to welcome Harley to the show today. Harley is an intuitive who has been working in this spiritual space since the 80s, which is a very different time, than what we're in right now. And he is not only an intuitive, but he has his own numbers system called Power Numbers. He has been part of books. He has worked with other intuitives, helping them to create boundaries and clean things up a little bit in their lives. So everybody, please hit the heart button and welcome our friend and Shoshana's dad, Harley Monte, to the show today. Let me get him off the mute. There he is. Hi, Harley.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Dad.
Good.
Hi, everybody.
We're so excited to have you on the show today, Harley, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Would you like to chime in for just a moment on our hot topic today? How do you kind of deal with judgment in your own life?
Well, you know, judgment, everything I do is basically about vibration, okay? And when you send out a vibration based on a judgment you have of somebody else, if they are open, if they're sensitive, they can pick up on that, okay? And that will definitely cause them to react to you in a different way, okay? And so you have to be careful what you send out, because it could be sending something to you. Actually, they say that, 75% of all curses or evil eye are sent out unintentionally, okay? It could be by jealousy, could be by envy, by whatever reason, and just by that thought. And so you have to say, okay, in order to protect myself from this type of situation, I can't send it out to somebody else.
I love those thoughts as well. And I recently read an article. I may pull it up for another hot topic another day, but I was reading an article about, I think you might have seen it too, Crystal, about empaths being a mirror, and how we kind of, someone sends out kind of a vibration of how they are, maybe it's judgment in this case, and then we kind of send it back, and then it's kind of this mirrored thing that happens. So it's really interesting that you bring that up as well, because I think on the same lines as what I was talking about with Siri, of being in that space of love. If it's your goal of, being careful about the vibes that you send out there, then that's something else that you have to kind of check in with as well. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Harley. I want to get into your story because I know that there's a lot of pieces to it. And we were talking about before the show how, Harley, you said that you feel like you kind of have constant breakthroughs, and that's something that we've talked about on the show a lot. But I would love for you to start out and take us back maybe to how things were before you realized you were intuitive. Like, what was your life like a little bit before that time?
A lot of turmoil. I didn't handle things always in the best ways. My wife and I, whenever we would hear about a clairvoyant, a tea leaf reader, palm reader, we would go. Okay, and we'd spend, and it never really had an impact on us. It didn't mean anything to us. Nothing really came out of it. Okay, but what happened was one night when my wife was in Florida with the kids, I had nothing to do, and I opened up the newspaper, and there was an ad for a spiritual fellowship. And so at the bottom, it said clairvoyance following service. So I said, well, what do I got to lose? I got nothing else to do tonight. So I went down there. There were 300 people in a ballroom of a hotel. Okay. And they started off with a meditation, and everybody's sitting like this. And I say, wow, that's really power to get everybody to be able to sit like that. I didn't understand any of what was going on. There was a dissertation. I didn't understand it, word one. Okay. And then what happened is this gentleman gets up and he is talking to people. May I come to you? And they'd say, God bless you. And he talked to them. And then he points towards my way and he says, may I speak to you, sir? And I look around, he says, no, you. And I said, God bless you, because that's what everybody else said. Okay. And it just amazed me, the things he told me about my business. Okay. My business being tied up with family. So he told me things about my family. And then in 5 minutes, I was just totally amazed. I was floored. I called him up for a private appointment with him, and he told me I was a Chinese warrior in a past life. Didn't mean a thing to me. Then he started in on the business again, and I listened to everything he said, and I applied it to what was happening around me, and everything seemed to go better. Like I had a better understanding of what was happening. And then in June, okay, my wife was in the country with the kids. I had nothing to do. I said, you know what? Things aren't going so hot. I'm going to go make another appointment with this fellow. His name was Reverend John White. And I was told that he was down at Lilydale, New York, which is a spiritual community. You have to be a spiritualist to own a house there. And people go around, they read your write-up on the wall outside, and then they go in for an appointment. There's yoga in the park. It's phenomenal. So anyways, he was already down there. So the woman said, why don't you see Edie? Okay, I'll see Edie. I was desperate at that point, okay? And she took me on my first guided meditation. I saw everything. I saw the stairs. I saw the gate. The guardian of the gate came, opened up the gate for me, gave me a key. I went into a building, no walls, only doors. I opened up a door. I came out, gave him back the key, came down the stairs and waited for her to finish the meditation. And she said, well, what did you see in the room? I said, nothing. It was black. It was dark. There was nothing. So she said, that's funny. You should have seen your raison d'etre, your reason for being. So I said, well, I guess I don't have one. And I started to cry. And that was the situation. What am I doing in this business? Where is it going to get me? What's happening? Why am I tied to it? So anyways, she made me feel better. And she said, come back next week. And this is when things started to happen, okay? She said, come back next week, I'm having a circle. So, okay, I'm figuring witches underneath the moon, nude, 265 pounds. I don't think this is gonna come about. But I went anyways, and they sit in a circle to keep the energy in the circle. Everybody was dressed, which was, good for me. And then she did the same meditation. And I took every little piece of paper, and I walk around with lots of papers in my pocket. I wrote on every little piece of paper, I wrote what I saw. And I saw myself standing in front of 300 people and giving a demonstration of spirit communication. I see myself doing one-on-ones. I saw myself teaching. I've lived almost all of what I've seen. Okay. And so I was amazed, utterly amazed. Then she handed out 3 envelopes. And some of you might not be old enough to remember Johnny Carson used to do this routine called Karnak the Magnificent. Okay, where he dressed up in a robe with moons and stars and everything else, and he would put on this big turban, and Ed McMahon would hand him an envelope. He'd hold it up to his eyes, and it would be written. You could see that what he was supposed to say was written on the envelope. There was nothing written on these envelopes. Okay, I took it. I held it in my hands. I held it up to my heart. Okay, I held it up like I didn't know what I was doing. Okay. I got 2.5 out of 3. Okay. First one, I just wanted to hug everybody. It was phenomenal. It was the word love written with a purple crayon on a pink piece of paper that was in the envelope. Second one, I saw a stream, okay, with a deer poking its head out of the woods and a boat. Okay. And that was the scene on the back of our old $1 bill. And that's what was in the envelope, was a $1 bill. Third one I had trouble with. Okay, I saw rays coming from the sky, and I saw rays coming from the earth, and I said, okay, it's the wheat coming up to meet the sun, or the sun, bringing it. And I give myself a half point because it was a picture of Jesus and his auras. Okay, and so I was on a high that week. You couldn't get me down. No matter what happened, I could deal with it. It was phenomenal. Okay, I went back the week after, and I said, okay, we'll see what's coming up. Okay. So I go in, I said, where's Edie? Edie's not here today. Okay. So who's here? And they said, Marilyn. Okay. What's happening tonight? And it's a trance circle. Well, can I sit in? Well, you have to get permission. So I went to Marilyn and I said, Marilyn, first of all, I said, my mom's name is Diane. Oh, Diane, how is she? We're related down the line. Okay. So I said, can I join your circle tonight? Oh, yes. Okay. And we're sitting there and she invokes spirit. And for people who don't know what invoking spirit is, you say, dear God, we invite the spirits that come of whatever levels of the white light you're working at, and we invite them in to join with us, our loved ones and our guides. And all of a sudden, I feel my head like it's in a vice. And I look at my hand and it's not shaking, but I feel like it's really, really shaking. And she comes over and she says, good evening. And I said, why is she saying good evening? She spoke to me before the circle. And then a voice came out of me, and I don't remember anything. This is what people told me after. Okay. They said a voice came out of you that just shook the walls. And what the voice said was, Baruch Shem Kavod Mechusah Le'olam V'ed. I had to go home and look in a prayer book to sound it out, to look in English. That's the second line of the Shema, which is Hear, O Israel, Lord God is one. Second line is, may his name live forever and ever. And it was a rabbi who died in a concentration camp. Okay, no relation to me that I know of. Okay, maybe it was my heritage, who knows. Okay, but he talked about the fact that we cannot allow another Holocaust, genocide, call it what you want, for color, for language, for beliefs. We cannot allow it. Okay, 2 weeks later, there in a country in Africa, there was 17,000 people killed in the cleansing. And that's what he was warning about, but nobody knew to ask the questions. Then my father came through. He told me about a box in the warehouse, because I took over my father's business, that gave me the papers I needed to be able to get rid of the person who was really hurting our company. Okay. So when I found that box, I flipped out. I mean, it's an affirmation like you can't believe. Then she goes over to somebody else, okay, who was training with her for a year. This was his first attempt at public trance, okay, and she says, good evening, and a voice comes out of me, and I don't know why, okay, I don't even remember it happening, and it says, no, I'm over here. If you want to talk to me, come over here, come over here. Well, Peter was mad at me for 6 months, okay, because that was his time. And then he moved to Vancouver. We became friends after a while, and then he moved to Vancouver, And then one day I get a phone call and it says, do you know where Peter is? I said, yeah, Vancouver. He says, no. Where is Peter? I said, give me 10 minutes. Called back and I said, he did a home circle, 7.5 miles from his home. Okay. 4 miles along that road. Okay. In the river, you will find his car and him. And that's where they found him. And that was the beginning of my sorry, I get emotional a bit. That was the beginning of my breakthrough. I took every opportunity to go to people's houses that were haunted, like sit in circles, okay? I even went into trance when other people were in trance, and there was a communication between the two spirits that came through. I mean, I did all this stuff. I never learned about it. It all came to me by trying it or by spirit telling me what I needed to know. And that's how I developed myself to go so fast. 3 weeks later, I go to Marilyn and I say, I want to teach. And she says, well, you can't teach because what are you going to teach? I said, I don't know. They'll tell me what I'm going to teach. Okay. She says, no, you have to take a 16-week course. So I said, okay, I'll take a 16-week course. Halfway through the course, I'm teaching the teacher things that she never heard of. And then one night, okay, I'm coming out of a meditation and I go, and she comes running over and says, what's the matter? I said, somebody very important has just departed from this world. And I got out to the car and I turned on the radio and Mrs. Gandhi had just been assassinated. And that was another breakthrough for me. I mean, and all these things that happened to me helped to bring me up to where I am today. And I could tell you stories till midnight, but I've been told, we only have an hour, so I got to cut it down. So, but this was my breakthrough. This is what made me do what I did. And to be honest with you, I started teaching. I taught people to work as a group to find lost children. We could never get the backing for it, okay, because we were psychics, okay. And in fact, if anybody was sick, I'd run to the hospital, okay, to comfort them for healing, whatever was required. And then one day I broke my leg, okay, and I called up and I said, I can't teach tonight. I got a broken leg. And the answer was, okay. And I never heard from anybody. And that to me breaks down the meaning of fellowship. Fellowship is we're all there for each other. We all have to help each other. Okay. And I left my crystals. I left my cards. Okay. I did not do any readings. I closed. I took the battery out of my spiritual cell phone so I wouldn't hear from spirit for 5 years. And it was the worst 5 years of my life. And then I run into this guy and I'm talking to him. And he says, I know Marilyn. Why don't you call her and tell her you want to come back? And I said, no, I'm not going back. That's it. Finished. He says, okay. Picks up the phone and dials a number and gives me the phone. And Marilyn answers the phone. Okay. And I say, I think I want to come back. She says, good. I'm giving a circle tonight. I have to leave early. You take over. And I'll tell you, I will not stop ever again. It was so enlightening. It felt so good. The reception of people to me and to what I do just gave me what I needed to go on. And that's the breakthrough story. That's the breakthrough story.
It's amazing to me how we titled this show Naturally Intuitive for a reason, and it really is that sometimes that's how it happens, that it's something that just occurs, something that just comes naturally, that there's not necessarily a class that you can take or something that brings spirit through in that way. Was there anything outside of, I know you had the support kind of in that community with the circles that you were going through, but when you weren't in that community, when you were at home, when you were just somewhere else that wasn't those supportive people, like what was that like for you? Because obviously, like we were talking about this before the show, it wasn't social media then to where you could, you know, go find out, oh, you know, trans community or trans group or spiritual group or whatever. So what was that like for you, and how were other people around you acting, like your wife? How'd that go?
Well, my wife used to walk around the house going, ooh, okay. And when the kids would say, where's daddy going? Okay, when she'd say, he's going to see a man about a horse. Okay,
and I thought for years we were getting a pony.
That's what it was. So, to be honest with you, in those days, okay, it had stigma, okay? I basically was in the closet as far as my spirituality, okay? I wasn't allowed to tell people, show people, do for people other than what I was doing there, because God forbid it should get out and the rabbis would come and take the mezuzah off our door. Okay, that was the fear, okay, from my wife. And so I kept it quiet for a long, long time. And I had a friend on the street, Harvey. He read every single book that ever existed, okay, about Seth, about this, and Moody, the whole bit, he read them all, okay? And we used to talk. And I say, you know what, come down to my circles, you might enjoy it. Well, no. Finally, he told his wife, and his wife comes to me and says, can you bring back my brother who died? And I said, sure, we could try. I can't go looking for him because that's disturbing the dead. But if you think of him and he wants to come, by all means. I said, but there's one condition. Your husband has to stay in the room. So she got him to agree. And I started a little meditation just to relax, to get rid of the negativity, okay, just to bring up the vibrations a bit. And I hear footsteps leaving the room. And so I know he left. But the important thing was, yes, her brother did come. Yes, her brother was able to make everyone there believe that it was actually him. Okay, there were details that were given that nobody else knew. For example, about the day that she fell down at the park and he had to take her and put her on his bike and walk her home because she couldn't walk. And he was mad because he was supposed to play baseball. Okay, the fact that I saw him with a big marshmallow in his hands, and she started to laugh. She says, that wasn't a marshmallow, that was a pillow. We used to play a game where he tried to smother me. So, you know, we definitely had proof that it was him. And that's very important to me. I won't stretch. I have to see it exactly what it is and have the person understand why it's coming through, or else I'm not doing my job. Okay. So, you know, that was when, you know, she got back to my wife and started, Harley did this and Harley this and Harley that. And that's when my wife said, okay, you know, if you want to tell people, go ahead and tell people.
Do you think that because mommy didn't want you telling people and there's a big stigma around it, do you think that held you back so that when you were in those situations, you didn't always get all the messages that you were supposed to get? Or once you were in that situation where you were granted the honor of doing your thing, everything still came through to the level that it should have?
Oh, yeah. Okay. But you got to understand, my belief mechanisms and everything that we do in this type of work, actually in everything in life, is based on belief mechanisms. My belief mechanism was, my spirits are not there for me. They're there for everybody else but me. Okay. And so that held me back till I had the understanding, because of a gentleman who sat in one of my workshops. Okay. I never used them. Now, okay, it's been about, 15 years? I'm using them now. You know, I'm not abusing them, but I'm using them. They're there for me because, you know, like my joy guide said, listen, I'm his joy guide. If I don't make him happy, I'll stand by the side, let him pick somebody else to be his joy guide, but I'll never leave him. When I heard that, I knew that my spirits, coming from the top of the rabbis that teach me, going all the way down to Richard, 7 years old when he passed, are there for me as well as for everybody else. And so that, you know, that's, did I miss things before? No, I don't think I did. You know, Jessica said something before, okay, that you know, things happen sometimes in a certain way. Okay, I believe that a lot of things that happen because Spirit puts them in our paths. Okay, it's up to us to be able to interpret what they're doing for us, but there's certain things that have to be done on the physical level.
Or find someone who can interpret it for you.
Huh?
Or find someone who can interpret it for you.
Yeah, sure.
Like certain dreams.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And, a lot of people are scared of what I do. But, I had a choice. When I found out what I could do, and it was all natural, okay, I didn't study with anybody. It was all natural. I had a choice. I could have turned towards paganism. I could have turned towards Wicca. Okay. I decided to go with the light. My belief mechanisms in God are so strong, as I know that God to be, that it's just part of what I do. And I thank him every day for what he's given me to be able to help other people and to help myself. I think we froze.
No, I'm taking it in. I'm just like,
Okay. So
no, I think it's interesting too, because I think that there's a lot of people who don't feel like that belief in God and the work that we do can coexist. That's a lot of what I experience living here in the Bible Belt of the United States, is that if you're experiencing some of the things that you and I experience, that is not from God, that is not anything that's white light at all. And so is there anything in particular that you say to people like that, or you just don't worry about it?
You're not going to be able to convince somebody who has their mind so set, okay? But if they're willing to subject themselves to me talking to them, me doing a reading for them,
Subject
usually,
themselves. I love that.
You got to understand, logic is involved a lot, okay? So nurses and doctors, okay? I'm not scared to talk to them about this. I've even talked to rabbis about it, okay? And sometimes you can make a little bit of a hole in the dike, and the water will come through. Other times it doesn't, but sometimes you plant a seed, okay? But you can't push. When you become too pushy, then it's, because a lot of people are scared about cults, okay? And even a lot of people look at yoga as being a cult in the olden days. Okay, whereas now it's a little more open. You can go to, there's studios on every block. You can do hot, cold, medium, whatever you want to do. In those days, okay, in transcendental meditation and in yoga, they felt that was cult work in those days. And so there was all that feelings about all the different types of things that came into my life with those experiences, okay? Like, how can I, a good little Jewish boy, sit in a circle opposite a woman who's holding a wooden cross on her lap in order to keep the spirits away from her? But that didn't interfere with my beliefs. Okay, my belief was that I'm sitting there with God and with his angels. And the one thing that I've learned over the years, okay, is that there's angels that come from heaven and there's angels that are living on earth. And that's why now I'm starting to write about Jacob's ladder. Okay, being the ladder that the angels use to go up and to come down to earth from heaven, and also that it's the conduit of the answers to our prayers and our wishes. So that's my beliefs.
Mm.
I like how you shared that you had shut it down and then was able to pick it back up, because I had intuition when I was younger. And growing up in the church, I was taught that it was evil, and it used to terrify me when I'd see things. Or how do you open that back up?
Well, I was lucky. I ran into a rabbi, and I told him what I did, and I was sure he was going to throw me out of the synagogue. Okay, but he said to me, you know what? And I still have trouble with this, okay? He says, this is what the prophets used to do. And in the age of the prophets, this was common. He says, the fact that you're able to do it now, I don't know what that symbolizes, but, I definitely don't look at myself as being a sage or a prophet. Okay, but it's acceptable according to Jewish law. The other thing was, he said, you can't use body parts. Some people like to bring, a lock of hair, a picture, this or that. Okay, not needed. Not needed. Okay, so as long as you do it without that, you're not doing witchcraft. You're allowed. Okay, as long as you don't go looking for some. And I'll tell you, in the early years, when I started looking for certain spirits to come through, I got a lot of imposters. Okay, you take like what happens on a Ouija board. If you say, is your name Dave? It will say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you say, what is your name? It has to spell out a name.
Right.
And the Ouija board, okay, as much as it's made by Milton Bradley in the olden days, I don't know who makes it now, and is considered a game, it is a serious tool in the hands of somebody who is intuitive.
Yes.
Okay? So what happens, okay, is somebody says, they're working on a Ouija board, somebody calls them up, says, let's go for coffee. They take it and they put it by the side, say, okay, and they don't send spirit away after invoking spirit. But the thing that's important to answer your question, I got on a rant, I apologize. Okay, but what's important to your question is the fact that we all have this ability. I get really, really upset when people call it a gift, because sometimes it's not such a nice gift. Okay, but it's not a gift, it's an ability. And if you go to the piano and play chopsticks, all you're ever going to play is chopsticks. But if you go and open up a book of Bach, after 1,000 days of practice, somebody will pay to listen to you play.
So is that where your number system came from? You were opening up to your Bach?
Well, actually, it came out of frustration. I was in Halifax doing readings, okay? And I had this woman who would not believe anything I said. So half an hour of wasted time, okay? So I can't let her go like that. So I say to my spirits, what do? Ask for her birthday. So I said, what's your birthday? I said, if I ask a question, maybe she'll warm up, okay? So I'm adding it up. She says, oh, you're a number 1. You're going to do this. You're going to see this. This is going to happen to you, okay? In 10 minutes, she understood everything I said in half an hour, sent me 4 clients. So I started doing it for everybody. And the only thing that really changed was my delivery. You don't talk to a number 4 the same way you talk to a number 1. So then I'm in the Midwest, and I have this woman crying in front of me because I told her to leave her husband. She's in physical danger. Okay. And she's crying and I can't get her to stop. There's people waiting outside. So I say, what do I do? So my spirits say, ask for his birthday, stupid. Like I didn't think of that, So we have that relationship. They could talk to me that way. So anyways, I asked for his birthday. I say, oh my God, he's a manic depressant. He's off his meds. Okay. So she turns around and says, how do you know? I said, I don't know. That's the one question I've never, ever, ever been able to answer is how do I know? So anyways, I get a phone call 3 days later. Thank you for saving my life. So I said, what are you talking about? She said, I went home that night and I locked up his guns. I hid his guns. He came home last night like you told me he would, and he tried to find the guns to kill me. She said, because of you, I had the nerve to call the police. And the police came and they didn't even take him to the jail. They took him right to the hospital. That's how bad a situation he was in. Okay. That night I said to my spirit guides, okay, teach me the system. So they taught me the system, and my joy guide got in, and he's the one that made up the titles of all the different numbers. So number 1 is I'm number 1 and I know it. Okay, number 2 is I'm number 2, so I try harder, like the old Avis commercial. 3 is spiritual and self-belief. 4 is emotions, and 5 is middle of the road. Okay, and then they gave me all the meanings for that, and it goes all the way up to 10, 11, 22, 33, and 44. And it works. And I teach people that. I used to teach people this system. And one day I'm there and something just slipped in my mind, okay, what I was doing. I don't know, when I'm teaching, I don't know whose number. They write it on a piece of paper and they give me the piece of paper, okay? And I said, well, this person has had a 0 situation 3.5 years ago, 5 years ago, and 8 years ago. And they said, well, how do you know that? That's not in your handout that you gave. I said, that's when you start to bring out the intuitive abilities that you have, okay? and you tie the two of them together. So the number system is a number system unto itself. But when you put the intuition into it, it's amazing the results that you can get out of it.
It sounds really interesting, and I would love to do a little demo of the numbers while we're on the show today. I think you're gonna tap in and talk a little bit. We're gonna do a little mini. Not gonna put all their number information out there, even though I really would love to stay on here for another hour and listen all about Crystal and Siri. But Harley's gonna take some time now and share with us the numbers of Crystal and Siri, and we'll learn a little bit about them today.
Okay. So okay, let's do Siri first. Okay. So Siri, I just want to let you know that with the year 2000, numerology changed. Okay, it really did. But your numbers, okay, even though you were born before the year 2000, are very similar to those of the people born after 2000. So your number actually comes out to a 19, okay, which comes to a 10, which comes to a 1. So you're number 1. Okay, I'm number 1 and I know it. Don't tell me what to do, I'll tell you. Okay, and that's a good way to be. However, you're probably not as strong in number 1 as you could be, because on the secondary line, the 1, 0, okay, 0 normally just lines up the numbers. When we talk about characteristics of a person, which is what my system does, okay, we give it a value and we say that, whoops, I did something wrong. Oh my God, what happened?
You're still here. We still see you.
Okay. I saw it. Okay, so we give 0 value, and the value that we give it is 0 equals nothing. That means that at one time or another in your life, your number 1 was crushed into the ground. Okay. However, you're being able to rebuild, and it's really a little weird because in the primary position you have the number 1, which means no matter how much you get knocked down, you're still got that number 1 energy. But what really gives you the boost, okay, is the number 9 in the secondary position. The number 9 in the secondary position is versatile power. You're able to do anything you have to do in any way you have to do it, okay? So you're a chameleon, okay? If you've got to appear like a movie star, you can be a movie star. If you've got to appear like a janitor, you can appear like a janitor, and you'll get done whatever you have to get done. Number 9, okay, made up of 3 threes. That's where you get your spiritual and self-beliefs. Okay, and you have 3 of them that you can call on. But if we take it another way and we do 3 times 3, it becomes 33, which becomes the Christ number, right? So I call it the teacher's number because Jesus was a teacher. Okay, he taught the masses. He was a rabbi. Rabbis taught in those days. Okay, so what do teachers do? They stand up in front of 27 brats. They teach people how to deal with life situations. They teach people how to deal in work situations. And even the sales rep is a teacher because they have to teach why their product is better than somebody else's. Okay, so that being said, teaching is all about communication. And that is where your forte is. You are a communicator. Whether it's on a one-on-one or whether you're standing in front of hundreds of people, you can communicate. So that being said, okay, that's the energy that you have to work with. The thing that you have to watch out for, however, because there's another thing that's associated with Jesus, and that's the fact that he was a martyr. And you have to be careful not to martyr yourself. As a teacher, you have to teach how people to do things, not do it for them. Okay, for example, you give a person a fish, they eat for one day, you teach them how to fish, they eat every day. So this is what I have to tell you, okay? Give people ideas of what they have to do to make the changes in their life that they have to do, but don't say you're going to do it for them. Okay, you're a teacher. Okay, not a martyr. Okay, and that doesn't only apply to the people that you meet in the work that you do. It also applies to family. And there seems to have been a situation about two and a half weeks ago where family where this type of situation came up, and I really got to congratulate you because you handled it a lot better than you have in the past. Okay, without getting frustrated. Can you relate to that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm really proud of you. I give you a gold star. Okay, so that's the basic characteristics for Siri. Siri. Anybody want to make a comment before I go on to number 2?
I got teary for the things that I know about Siri. I was getting teary over here. Siri, you give Harley a thought before we move on to Crystal.
Absolutely, right on all the way. And add to the number 1. I'm actually 1 in a million My mom had 1 in a million chances of having a child.
Wow.
That's what the doctors told her.
Wow. That's a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, Siri, as I was listening to Harley do that, it was like a whole soundtrack of different songs was like all of a sudden blasting through my head. Like every single time he said something, a song would come up about that. A song would come up about that. So
I'd be interested in those songs.
Huh?
I'd be interested in them songs.
Well, I mean, Boy George was one. What started it was he started saying something about the number one and da 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 da. And I'm like, oh my God, her husband could like do a tune he could turn this reading into like a song for Siri.
And then Siri's very musical, so that's why this all makes sense now.
Yeah, and
my husband plays drums, I sing, yes.
What's that song about? One is a magical number.
One is
the loneliest.
Loneliest number. Okay. It's a yin and yang. You got to look at the song perspective.
But then again, you always have Bob Marley's one.
Mm.
But when
Lots
you're
of ones.
When you're a one and you're the best, nobody else can do what you can do. You actually segregate yourself a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You don't work as a team, not because you can't, because if you wanted to, you could, because you're number one, but because you just take it all on yourself, you are quite alone.
Yeah.
Well, it's a versatile power. Okay, she can adapt to any situation. So she doesn't put herself as the queen, okay, on a pedestal. She puts herself where she has to be in order to accomplish what it is that she has to accomplish.
Many masks.
Okay. And then again, if we want to talk about zero situations, I can tell you when you had some of them, but I don't think we want to do that right now.
Let's move on to Crystal. This is fun. I want to hear about Crystal.
Crystal, if you think Siri's bad, you're worse. You're coming from a 2-9 going to an 11. So I'm number one and I know it, but I'm number one and I know it. Don't tell me what to do. I'll tell you. If people want you to get to do something that you don't want to do, okay, what they have to do is they have to say to you, I hear it's great to go to Florida in December. Not say, let's go. Then a couple of days later, you'll come back and you'll say, I think it's a great idea to go to Florida in December. Okay, which is okay, because if people know how to deal with that energy, that's perfectly okay. Coming from a 2 and a 9, okay, a 9 is versatile power, as I said before. So you're able to do whatever it is you have to do in any way you have to do it. The 33 is a very spiritual number for you, okay, and a lot of what you do, okay, is based on belief mechanisms, and probably most of what you learned from spirit rather than from people of this level. Coming from the number 2 in the primary position, it's a little bit of a hiccup, okay, because number 11s don't try. Number 2 is I'm number 2, so I try harder. They just do. And so every once in a while you have self-confidence issues, okay? And I mean that in a good way, okay? So what happens, okay, is the number 1 will always win out, but you'll always say, oh, I don't know if I should do this, if I can do this, okay? And then eventually what happens is you say, I know I can do it, because that number 11 energy is so strong. If it wasn't so strong, it would become a number 2, okay, which we don't normally do in power numbers, okay? And then we take the 2 in the primary position, the 2 on the final position, okay? And it really creates a situation where actually it causes problems in the upper stomach area. So I don't know if you've ever had those stomach problems, but it's only because you're not exercising, like they say, exercise your power animal. Exercise your number. Be a number 11. Let people cope with it. Don't be mean, but be strong. Okay. And by giving that strength to the people who are around you, okay, you're going to accomplish a lot more than what you're accomplishing today. Not saying that what you're accomplishing today isn't anything, but the old yoga philosophy, we strive to get better with every practice. Okay. So you can be doing a lot more. Don't be scared to stand up in front of people and talk, because you are a number 11. They will listen. They will have no choice. Okay. So that's what I see coming up for you in the very close future. Okay. Is that you'll be taking speaking engagements, and being able to talk to more people about the beliefs that you have, about the trade that you do, and it's going to raise you up. Because you know what? If we don't look at our achievements, okay, what are we running on? Okay, you can't get from Montreal to Toronto on a tank of gas. You're going to run out of a place called Port Hope, which really exists. Okay, and that's why they built these service centers. Okay, so you get to Kingston in 2.5 hours. Usually takes me 3.5. Okay, and you pull in the service center. You say, wow, look at that. I didn't get a ticket. I feel fantastic. And I'm going to get to Toronto in time to have dinner with my friends. You go in, you take a pee, you get a Tim Hortons coffee, you fill up your tank with gas. Because of your achievement, that's what gives you the essence, the gas, okay, to go on and do more. Don't stop. Keep going. You've got so much opportunity has come your way and you've ignored it. Don't ignore it anymore.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
I love that for you, Crystal.
I
mean,
know.
just be the number 11.
So are you like that girl from The Big Bang Theory, the little blonde one?
I love that show, by the way.
What?
I love that show, by the way. No, I don't. But it's funny because, you know, I am the oldest of 3 girls. And however, I always tried to be better, like total recovering perfectionist in the house. Absolutely. That has been like the biggest piece of my work is to accept and know that I don't have to be Superwoman all the time and everything and it be perfect. Like that's huge. And I'm not afraid to speak in front of people. So that's that was something that you said, but yeah, I've had quite a few things thrown at me in recent years that have, you know, like those big fires that like pop up and everything has to go towards that fire. So I've really been struggling to stay true to my path in light of
you don't have to struggle. You've got the ability, okay, from versatile power to handle anything that is put in your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back, I see that in the moment, it didn't feel that way.
Okay, so may I go on? I know we're going late, okay?
Yeah.
But belief
We'll be a couple
mechanisms.
minutes
You
late,
know?
but you can finish with Crystal.
We all have belief mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it? So one day I'm doing a lecture and I'm sitting with some people and they're saying, you know, my people don't enjoy you, da, 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 da. So I said to them, well, do you use white light in your meditations? Oh, yes. So I say, well, how do you do it? Well, dear God, put your white light, you know, divine energy around me and keep me safe in what I'm about to do. I said, that doesn't work. You say, dear God, put your white light around me and keep it there till the next time I ask for it. Because it's a belief mechanism. When you need white light, you're so involved in the situation dragging you down, okay, that you forget about the white light. So just know that you're able to do whatever you have to do. That number 9 is part of who you are. Just go and do it. And you'll see, you'll succeed every single time.
Just do it, Crystal.
Do it.
Thank you, Harley. Thank you.
I love it.
Now Nike's going to sue me.
No, because there's an actor out there that has a whole bit about just do it and he's okay. So if they haven't gone after him yet, I'm sure we'll be all right.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun today to start to know all the things about Siri and Crystal. And of course, having you on the show, Harley, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I hope that you will come back and share more with us sometime, because I think that even in this space of many of us who have had our intuition shown to us, or our spiritual awakening, or whatever you want to call it, even in this space of social media, it still can be a space of being scared of what's going on, of feeling lonely, of a lot of, like we were talking about before the show, the emotion that comes up around all of this. I think that it can it can be a challenge. And that's one of the reasons we have this show, is so people know when they're experiencing these things that they are not the only one that's been through it, that they are not alone in going through it. And so we just really appreciate you being on the show and sharing your story, so that people can know that, you know, it does get a little crazy from time to time, but that they'll be okay, you know, through all of this. So thank you so much, Harley, for sharing with us today.
My pleasure, anytime. And just be well, be happy, and be in the light.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye to Harley, and we're going to chat for just a minute with the ladies. Bye, Harley.
Thank you.
And we are going to chat for just a minute and finish up the show. So great show today. I know you're probably a little bit biased, Shoshana, because he's your daddy, but it was a really, really good show. And Harley, so much fun. And it was cool getting to see, you know, all of us on this panel today have never met in person. We've been kind of internet buddies for a while. And just knowing, though, what I know about Crystal and Siri, like for me, it was emotional even to listen in on that and to get to experience that. So thank you two ladies for being the guinea pig, so to speak, for Harley today on the show, because I enjoyed it too. Did you guys enjoy your experience?
Well,
Yeah.
It's like you spoke about my breakthrough that I shared last year, you know, from going to zero. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really good. And Siri was asking in the chat during it, Shoshana, what was it like kind of from your end? Did your dad know all the things that you were doing without you? You didn't have to say anything?
I hope not. I was very good at putting up walls, or I think I was good at putting up walls, which I had to break down some of those walls later on in my life. But, you know, you kind of, when you think your dad knows everything, you kind of want to make sure that they can. And the truth is if you don't want somebody to be intuitive about you beyond a certain point, you have the power to not let them. Mm-hmm. Right? So people who are scared of this, just because you're in the same room as somebody, just because, I mean, like, we're people who deal with a lot of people. So if you deal with a lot of people, if you're a businessman, if you're whatever it is that you do, businesswoman, you deal with a lot of people and you learn people, right? You learn characteristics of people. But to actually get inside their head and actually to be like, 2 weeks ago, this is an event that happened to create this kind of turmoil. If you have a wall up, empaths can't feel that. So I'm pretty sure that I had that wall up. But when I needed him, he was there. And I didn't take Tylenol. I used crystal, like he would like use crystals, you know what I mean, like that's how, that was our healing. It was normal to me. It was probably weird to other people.
After you got past the point of thinking you were going to get a pony, right?
Right. I swear, I'm like, guys, Mom, Dad, when's the pony coming? Like, they're like, what pony? I'm like, well, you always say Daddy's going to see a man about a horse, and like they broke down. But I need to tell you, mind blown. I had no idea, and if you would have asked me, I would have said, no, that's a lie. I had no idea that my parents used to do those kinds of things before he found it. Like to go like fortune tellers or what have you, like palm readers. Like I cannot picture my mother in that situation at all. Like that was totally mind blowing. Yeah.
The more you know. That's what this show even provided a breakthrough moment for Shoshana today.
I don't know what to make of it, but yeah.
Well, it was so much fun to have him on and get to share about his story too. And anything you ladies have going on that you want to share before we go off today? Anything exciting happening? Any announcements? Anything? What's good? Anything?
I don't have anything new right now.
It's all good.
Coming up, I will, but not right now.
Yay. It'll be fun.
Have some big news coming up in the next couple of weeks, but in the meantime, we're just looking forward to Easter/Passover, a little bit of family time. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, that's coming up soon, and that's a busy weekend for us because it's also my husband's birthday weekend. So we're gonna have a lot of fun around here for that for sure. And I, of course, that same weekend have my cards coming out officially. We've done the pre-launch and it went beautifully. So thank you so much to everybody who supported that. But I have to show you guys because when I did my pre-launch, and I think I might have shown on the show at some point, but I just had a blank box. Like I didn't know what anything was going to look like. And I actually got them. I was supposed to get them today. I got them early. I got them Wednesday. I got my box and my picture, and it was very exciting. So it's been a fun week, but April 20th, you can look for the Colors of the Moon Oracle that has been my love child for the last 6 months, and so much fun. And I just want to thank everybody that's been so supportive, because it's hard to put yourself out there, and you know, we talked a little bit about judgment on the show today, and putting yourself out there and be like, well, I had this dream and in this dream, you know, and completely it's a vulnerable experience. So I'm so thankful to everybody in my circle that's been so supportive through the whole thing. Thank you so much for that. Next week on the show, let me pull up my notes so I can share next week. We have Heather, and hopefully Lori's feeling better. We love you, Lori. Lori will be back with Heather for our panelists. And we have my friend Liz Wilkins on the show, who I actually met through Heather. And Liz is a marketing ninja. She does not work in the spiritual space, which is a little bit different for us on the show, but she is going to be sharing her experience with learning to flow. And she shares a little bit about what that means to her, and kind of, we talked a little bit about it on the show last year, giving up, just letting things go and learning to flow in her life. And we're excited that Liz Wilkins is going to be with us to share about all that. But until next week, I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time, same place on The Breakthrough. Bye, everybody.
Bye.